Hey guys, tonight we descend not metaphorically, but quite literally into the bowels of ancient Rome. Down, down beneath the bustling streets, through the stone and soil where the city's true secrets are kept. You're standing above the Forum, surrounded by the chatter of senators and merchants, sandals slapping against marble. But your fate lies just below. You're about to enter the Tullianum, the oldest, most feared prison in Rome. The doorway is easy to miss. It's not marked, not grand, not theatrical, like a Colosseum gate. It's a small, squarish hole beneath the curia. You duck inside. The air shifts. It's wet, cold, not just chilly, but wet with something alive, like breath that's been trapped for centuries. You descend one step, then another, then 20 more, and the light from the street above disappears behind you like a snuffed flame. You take a breath. Bad idea. The stink is immediate sour, flesh, mildew, rot, and something distinctly fecal. Not even the dankest basement you've ever smelled comes close. This is ancient darkness. It has weight, and it's hungry. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your foot slips slightly as you reach the floor of the upper chamber. Upper is a generous word. It's the nicer part of the prison, if such a thing exists. You can almost stand fully upright. The walls drip with condensation, and moss creeps along the mortar between stones. Every breath brings in 1,000 years of decay. But it's not just the structure that makes this place infamous. It's what it represents. Finality. You don't come here to serve time. You come here to wait. Roman prisons weren't built for rehabilitation or punishment. They were holding tanks, and for most, that tank was filled with misery and little else. The Tullianum is older than much of the Roman Republic itself. Some say it was built by Ancus Marcius, the fourth king of Rome. Back in the 600s BCE, historians still argue whether it was originally a water cistern or a sewer, because honestly, the difference hardly matters once you're inside. It's been both. You hear a distant shuffle. Maybe it's a rat. Maybe it's a fellow prisoner. Maybe it's just the building settling around you like a tired jawbone. You can't tell. Here's the deal. You probably won't survive this. The prison isn't trying to kill you outright, but it's not lifting a finger to keep you alive either. You sit in the cold and the dark, waiting. And as the waiting stretches into weeks, then months, you realize something. No one's counting. There's no record. You've stopped being a citizen or soldier or even a criminal. You're just part of the stones now. Above you, life continues. The Forum bustles with speeches and trials and gossip. Senators debate grain prices and glory. Citizens argue over who wore what to whose funeral. The sounds filter faintly through cracks in the stone. But you're not part of that world anymore. You inch toward a wall and press your back to it. Mistake, it's slick, and not with water. There's a stain, herald blood, maybe. Dried vomit. You stop wondering. You stop caring. You pull your cloak tighter, though the dampness eats through wool like teeth. Someone died in here last week. You never saw the body, just smelled the shift in the air. That sudden spike of sourness, like meat left on a sunny windowsill. Then the scrape of movement. guards dragging something heavy, the dull thud of a head against stone, and then silence again. You try to sleep, but there's no day or night in the Tullianum, just endless dim. Your eyes adjust eventually, which is worse. Now you can see outlines, the body of another prisoner curled beside a column, their eyes open. You think they're alive. You're not sure. Here's the fringe detail nobody talks about. The Tullianum was rumored to be cursed. Some whispered it was built on a sacred site. Others claimed the bones of the first Roman traitors were buried beneath its flagstones, restless and angry. Guards reported nightmares, moans echoing when no one was inside, shadows that didn't belong. The place isn't just uncomfortably, it's wrong. And you, well, you feel it. Your breath fogs in front of you, even in summer. The walls seem to close in when you're not looking. Every once in a while, you swear you see something scuttling just out of view, something with too many legs, or too few. Outside, the courts are theoretically deciding your fate. Theoretically, maybe you stole bread. Maybe you insulted a senator's cousin's cousin. Or maybe you were just in the wrong place, wearing the wrong toga. Doesn't matter. You're here now. Remember, the Roman justice system wasn't interested in drawn-out legal dramas. Trials were quick and dirty, often depending more on status than evidence. Plebeian, good luck, enemy of the state. Prepare for a spectacle. Friend of a powerful patrician might just walk free. Historians still debate whether these prisons were more symbolic than functional, a place to show Roman authority in its purest, coldest form. A guard walks past the opening above. You see their sandals. They don't look down. You whisper something to yourself, just to hear a voice. But even your own words sound foreign here, like they don't belong. And here's the worst part. This is just the beginning. The welcome mat. There's a lower chamber. You'll get there eventually when you've proven yourself miserable enough to descend. But for now, try to sleep. Hug your knees. Close your eyes if you can bear it. Because down here in the belly of the Roman world, nothing is promised except the dark. And the dark is always hungry. You don't remember what day it is. That's assuming it's still a day at all. Time melts down here like candle wax in a room with no flame. You sit, breathing the air of centuries, wondering not how you got here but why prisons like this even exist. And here's the first bitter pill. In ancient Rome, prison isn't a punishment. It's an inconvenient holding pattern. You're not doing time in the modern sense. The Romans didn't see prison as justice. They saw it as delay. Justice happened in the courts, on the battlefield, or at the executioner's block, but not here. Here, you wait. The Roman word for prison was carcera, a term that came to mean many things: confinement, cage, even the starting gate at a chariot race, which, honestly, feels like the cruelest metaphor of all. You're not at the start of anything. You're in the slow decline. You shift your legs again, careful not to bump the man sleeping or possibly dead beside you. The chains clink softly. Yes, chains, not as punishment, but because Rome believed that to restrict the body was to break the spirit. Iron around your ankles wasn't symbolic. It was deeply practical. It made you controllable. If they could, they'd chain your thoughts. You try to stand. Bad idea. Your legs wobble from disuse, and the low ceiling kisses your forehead with a thud that echoes. A few feet away, someone groans in response. You wonder if it's Latin, Greek, or just pain in its purest dialect. And here's what burns. You're not even condemned yet. You're just accused. Innocent, at least in theory. But that didn't matter to Rome. Once accused us, especially if you lacked money or influence. You were fair game for a system that prioritized spectacle and efficiency over compassion. Maybe you're a slave accused of theft. Maybe a soldier accused of desertion. Maybe a senator's political enemy who got just a little too popular with the wrong crowd. Your label doesn't change the fact. You are disposable now. You think of home, wherever that was. The smell of bread, your mother's voice, the sound of sandals scraping the courtyard stones, gone. All of it cut off like a limb. Here, your first mainstream historical fact to stew on while you shiver. The 12 Tables Rome's earliest set of written laws barely mention prison, and when they do, it's mostly in the context of debt. That's right. Early Roman prisons weren't just for criminals, they were for debtors. You could be locked up simply for owing money, and once inside, there wasn't much distinction between petty thieves and traitors. Historians still argue whether prison conditions varied drastically depending on class. Some claim elite prisoners were treated with a hint more dignitily loud fresh water, maybe even conversation. Others say the Tullianum made no exceptions. Down here, everyone was equally unwanted. You squint toward a faint glimmer above, not sunlight, just torchlight from the corridor. A guard's moving slowly. You hear a muttered curse, the clink of a metal cup, then fading steps. You're not worth checking on today. And don't bother asking for a trial. Trials, in Rome, were often public theater. Judges were political appointees. Lawyers were orators who loved a crowd more than a case. Evidence was flimsy, and personal connections mattered more than proof. You remember a man Lucius, maybe dragged in beside you 2 nights ago. He claimed innocence, kept shouting it over and over, until a guard kicked him in the ribs and told him to let the stones judge. Haven't seen him since. Either transferred or removed or eaten. You close your eyes. Try to think of something funny. Not a lot of material here, but your brain does its best. You imagine Cicero defending you, slipping on the steps, toga flapping, calling the judge Your Majesty by accident. You smirk for 2 seconds. Then you remember Cicero's own head ended up nailed to a wall. That's Rome for you. And speaking of walls, yours are breathing. Not literally, but it feels like it. The stone sweats in the cold, and that moisture collects and drips, slowly, drip, drip, each drop like a ticking clock that doesn't count up or down, just is. Here, a weird tidbit. Some sources claim that guards used to mark prisoners with pigment or even tiny brandings, not as punishment, but so they wouldn't misplace anyone. With no central registry and poor records, losing a prisoner was surprisingly easy. Bureaucracy was vast, but not meticulous. You lean back against the wall again, daring the slime. Better the wet stone than the crawling floor. You hear another sound, a wheeze, someone across the room. No, closer, yourself. You hadn't realized how hard it is to breathe. The air is thinner here, thicker too. How that makes sense, you're not sure. But your lungs feel heavy. You imagine walking out, sunlight touching your skin again, the feel of wind, grass beneath your toes. But your legs are stiff, your eyes blur in the dark. Even if the door opened right now, could you walk? Could you remember how? There's another thing Rome didn't believe in: prison reform. No inspections, no public outcry. This isn't a place anyone talks about. Let someone famous dies here. The rest forgotten, buried in stone and stink. You begin to hum quietly, a lullaby from childhood. You can't remember all the words, but the melodies still lodged somewhere in the softest part of your brain. It soothes you for a moment, then the door slams above. A prisoner's being brought in. You hear the scuffle of sandals, the bark of a guard, a scream cut short. Another soul drops into this pit. You wonder what their story is. Then again, it doesn't matter. Down here, you're not a story, you're sediment. They push him toward your corner. You scoot aside, barely, and feel your own ribs beneath your skin like scaffold beams. You look up. He's young, maybe 16. His eyes are too wide, too alive. Poor kid, he doesn't know yet. The new prisoner hasn't moved much. He just sits, curled in on himself, like a coin dropped and forgotten. His breathing is shallow. You've seen that before. It's what happens when the shock hasn't worn off. When the mind still thinks this is temporary. He'll learn. You're back on the stone floor, knees tucked to your chest, arms wrapped tight. The chill of the place has worked its way into your bones, not just the air, but the stones themselves, like they've absorbed every shiver, every death, and now radiated back. Above you is the Forum, that famous plaza of Roman civic life. The columns rise high, clean, noble. Marble steps echo with togas and gossip and grand speeches about virtues and pietas. But here, just under their feet, you sit in filth, a literal rot beneath the Republic. They say the Tullianum was deliberately placed beneath the Forum for symbolic reasons, that you could feel Roman justice press down on you from above. Others argue that it was just convenient. The city was small when this was built. Real estate was limited. And hey, if a cistern could hold water, it could hold people. Historians still argue whether it started as a drain, a storage chamber, or even a sacred space repurposed into horror. But one thing's certain: it became the Roman state's final word. Not a prison, but a statement, a visible, literal downfall. You go from citizen to whisper, from voice to echo. You cough into your sleeve. It comes out wet, too wet. Someone groans behind you. Not the boy, someone older, deeper voiced. The sound is part human, part animal. You try not to look, because here est something that docenti get carved onto marble. The Tullianum was uncleaned. There were no janitors, no brooms, no drainage. What went in, stayed in. Prisoners relieved themselves in corners, in bowls, in nothing at all. Vomit, excrement, blooded, all pooled, soaked in, fermented. You're sitting in the residue of centuries. And still, you stay in the upper cell. Soon, you'll go lower. They call it the Laudomia word, borrowed from Greek, meaning stone quarries. It's deeper, smaller, carved rougher. The floor slopes downward into a basin. No light, not even the occasional torch flicker from the corridor. You're told prisoners down there go blind before they die. Still, you wait. You used to believe someone would come for you. A friend, a brother, a magistrate who owed you a favor. But hope doesn't last long in the Tullianum. It burns out fast, like oil on a dry wick. Instead, your mind starts to play games. You begin to fantasize about smells, roasted lamb, olive oil sizzling in a pan, fresh bread. Not because you think you'll eat them, but because imagining them seems to feed you more than the moldy grain mush you've been given once a day. Here's your fact to chew on. Roman prisons didn't include food. Seriously, The state wasn't required to feed you. If you didn't have family or friends delivering meals or bribing guards, you simply starved. Charity, if it existed, was random and unreliable. You recall one woman, years ago now, maybe, who brought bread for her son daily. She was caught hiding dried figs in her tunic, and the guard took them as a bribe to let her continue bringing the bread. Then one day, she didn't come. No figs, no bread, no son, soon after. So you eat what you're given, a scrap of lentils, water in a clay bowl with something floating in it. You pretend not to notice. Across the chamber, someone laughs. Not a happy laugh, not a mad one either. Just the dry, crumbling sound of a man remembering what joy used to taste like. The boy stirs. He speaks. His voice is high, scratchy. He says his name is Maureenus. He was accused of stealing a ring from a wealthy matron. He didn't do it, he says. Of course not. None of us did. You nod. Or maybe you don't. You're not sure. You tell him to stay quiet. Keep his head down. Don't attract attention. He asks how long he'll be here. You pause too long. He asks again, until they remember you. You say, he doesn't understand yet. Give him 3 days. He will. You know what's coming next. The next layer down. You dream of it every night now, or whatever passes for night here. A tunnel no taller than a man's shoulder, dug deeper than even this pit, carved not with purpose, but necessity, sloped so that waste could be pushed downward and forgotten. It's there that prisoners were sometimes left to rot until they became bones, indistinguishable from the rock. There's a reason people called it the House of Darkness. The Romans didn't use that name officially, of course. Too poetic. But among slaves, laborers, and the very unlucky it became folklore. The place where men sank instead of died. You once heard that if you pressed your ear to the lower wall, you could hear the old ones crying. Not voices, just sadness. Like sorrow made sound. That might have been nonsense. Or maybe not, because the Tullianum wasn't just a hole, it was a message. Rome didn't believe in hiding its power. If you were powerful enough to deserve a trial, fine, you might be tried. But if you weren't, if you were a footnote, then you were thrown in here to remind others. Citizenship is a gift, and Rome takes back gifts. You scratch your arm. The rash is spreading. Damp air and no sun, your skin begins to rebel, cracking, flaring. It feels like being stung by nettles, over and over. You try to remember the sky. You imagine blue, clouds, a hawk. Not soaring, just flying in slow, lazy circles. The boy asks you something else, but the words are muffled. Your hearing is going. Or maybe the stone is just absorbing sound now. The thing no one tells you is how quiet the Tullianum gets after a few days. The screams fade, the sobs quiet. Even the rats seem to tiptoe. It's like the building is a beast, and once it's swallowed you, it likes to digest in silence. You think of escape, but there's no escape. Not really. You can't even stand without brushing the ceiling. The door is thick. Metal reinforced wood, swollen from damp. It squeals when it opens. And anyway, even if you got out, where would you go? Rome doesn't forget escapees. They crucify them at the gates. No. Better to sit, to breathe what you can. To hold onto your name like a coin under your tongue. You're still you, just barely. Tomorrow, or whatever tomorrow is, they'll come for you. And next time, they'll bring rope. It's morning, or maybe it's midnight. You've given up guessing. The light never changes. Only the sounds shift, fewer footsteps above. more groaning nearby, the occasional drip now falling at an uneven rhythm. Even time can't keep its balance down here. You try stretching, bad idea. The iron shackles tug at your ankles like dead weights. They clink softly, and the sound echoes in the stone like a bell ringing underwater. Chains, not just for restraint, but for humiliation. A reminder, every time you move, that you're no longer free. You shuffle your foot and feel the ring of metal bite into skin again. The rust is flaking, the skin beneath, raw, wet. But don't get excited, won't kill you, just slow you down. Roman prisons didn't invest in comfort or in keys. Your chains might not even have a proper lock. Some were just hammered closed around the ankle with a hot spike. Permanent jewelry. Functional, cruel, very Roman. You lean back against the wall and look over at Marinus, the boy. He's not asleep. His eyes are open, glossy. He hasn't moved much. You wonder if his chains are cutting too. But you don't ask. That kind of conversation doesn't help anyone here. Instead, you wait, again. Because what else is there? Above your head, you imagine the sounds of the forum. Someone hawking olives. A magistrate arguing grain prices. A philosopher yelling into the void about virtue, while a dog pees on his sandal. Life moves on. And under all that living you know how ironic this is. Rome, the empire of roads and aqueducts, with public toilets and heated floors, can't manage a prison with so much as a cot. It's like they perfected civilization, then shoved its sewage into a single miserable hole. But you weren't thrown into this hole because of logistics. No, you were cast here because the Romans believed deeply in visible punishment and chains. Chains are the most visible part of all. Not just metaphorical, literal, decorative even. Weird historical tidbit for you. During triumphs, victorious generals paraded their chained enemies through the streets, showing off their shackles as if they were trophies. Entire processions of prisoners would be hauled forward, manacled from neck to wrist to ankle, made to stumble past cheering crowds before being tossed into cells like this. And often, this very cell. Imagine, one day, you're a king. The next, you're shackled to a damp wall in Rome, your title forgotten, your name scrawled on a tile somewhere, if you're lucky. Some prisoners wore their chains so long, the metal fused with their skin, the body adapting to captivity like a tree grows around a nail. And you're not even at that point yet. You adjust again, and the shackles dig in. There's no padding, no socks. Just raw metal, friction, and time. You think of stories from the city, of slaves who worked on chain gangs, building roads and tombs. They called it vincula, public chains. These men were marched from site to site, linked together, often carrying their own tools. Some even died in their restraints, and the body was buried with the chain still attached. Efficiency. Roman style. Historians still argue whether those road laborers had it better than the ones rotting in prison. At least they saw the sun. At least they could move. Of course, they also dropped dead mid-hammer, stroke, and were left where they fell. The boy beside you tugs at his chain. It doesn't budge. You don't tell him to stop. Let him try. Let him hope. It'll fade soon enough. And the guards, they love the chains because they do the work for them. No need for constant watching. No chance of escape. No need to feed someone who can't walk. Just toss in food like you're feeding a chained dog. You once heard about a prisoner somewhere outside of Rome who managed to escape by dislocating his thumb, slipping the shackle, and climbing the wall barefoot. He made it 15 miles before collapsing from blood loss. They brought him back. This time they hammered the chain through his foot. Your wrist itches. You scratch, even though it stings. You can feel the chain's weight with every gesture, even the smallest. You wonder if you'll forget what it feels like not to carry it. Even when you dream, you're still bound. There's a strange intimacy to this kind of suffering. You and your chain become a unit. It's the only thing that's constant. People die. Guards change. Even your mind fades. But that iron that stays, that clang, that bite, it's your lullaby now. And here's the kicker. Chains weren't always meant to punish. Sometimes they were ceremonial. Generals would chain their hands before praying to Jupiter, symbolizing their submission to fate. Lovers would wear miniature chains to show they were bound together. Romance and restraint, all one big Roman metaphor. Marinus finally speaks again. He asks what day it is. You lie. You say it's the 3rd or the 4th. You can't remember. But the lie feels like kindness. He asks how long prisoners stay here. You tell him the truth this time. Until your legs can't hold your chain anymore. You're not trying to be cruel. You're trying to be honest. And because deep down, you're starting to feel it in your own legs, that ache. The way the joints click when you shift. The way the iron feels heavier each hour, like it's not just dragging on your body, but dragging your soul downward. The guards come again. They don't say anything. One points. A man across the chamber groans. His chain clinks loudly as they drag him, half-conscious, toward the stairs. You flinch as he passes. His feet leave red smears on the floor. You hope the chain was worth it. The man doesn't scream as they drag him out. That's what makes it worse. It's like he's already left his body behind, just dead weight in rusted chains, his feet leaving watery, rust-colored trails that quickly vanish into the grime. And just like that, he's gone. You don't know where. You don't ask. You don't ask anything anymore. Instead, you listen, always listening. It's the only sense that still works properly. You track every shuffle, every cough, every faint whistle of wind from the upper corridor. Because sometimes, just sometimes, there's food. Not real food, of course. Not steaming bowls of stew or fresh dates or roast boar. Those are fantasies. What you wait for is the scrape. That familiar sound of a wooden bowl pushed through the hole in the stone. The bowl itself stinks, and whatever's in it is barely edible, but you scramble for it anyway. Tonight, it's a sour mash of barley and lentils, cold, sticky, probably been left out all day. And you're lucky you got some. There's only one bowl for every 3 prisoners. You don't ask how they decide who eats. Marinus stares at it like it's a miracle. You nod at him. He takes a bite, then another. Then he slows. You can tell he's tasting it now, realizing what it is and what it isn't. You lean back against the wall again and try not to think about the rats. But they're here, always. They know when the food comes. You hear them before you see them. Tiny claws on stone, quick, confident. They don't fear you. You remember your first night. You were half asleep when something brushed your foot. You thought it was another prisoner. Then you felt the teeth. They don't wait for death. They nibble while you're still warm. One man in the corner, old toothless, probably in here since before Julius Caesar, keeps one eye open all night, just to slap the floor whenever he hears them coming. Not because he's scared, just habit now. Like brushing flies off your face. They're not normal rats either. These are forum rats. Tough, bold, bigger than you'd like. They slip through cracks, slink across ankles, sometimes even chew leather straps right off a sandal. You've seen one carry off an entire crust of bread. You almost respected it. Some prisoners tried to catch them, use their meat, cook it if you could call heating a rat over a torch cooking. But fire is rare down here. Smoke makes the air even harder to breathe. So mostly, they just bite, and you just bleed. You press your knees tighter to your chest and stare at the opposite wall. It's damp, covered in scratches, names, maybe, or drawings. It's hard to tell. One looks like a crude fish, another might be a cross, or a dagger, or just claw marks. You add your own. With a broken bit of bone you found near the drain, you scratch your name. Not all of it, just the first letter. That's all you can fit. The stone is hard, the bone dull, but still you carve, because if you don't, you'll disappear. You want something to outlive you, even if it's just that letter. Another prisoner stirs. You recognize Himberly. He was healthy last week, round-faced. A merchant, you think. Now he's gray around the eyes, skin sagging, smells like old milk. He mumbles to himself, then coughs, hard, wet. You turn your head. The air is rancid, thick. It clings to your nose, to your clothes. You've long since stopped noticing the individual smells. Now it's just one overwhelming stench, a mix of sweat, blood, bile, feces, fear. If despair had a scent, this would be it. Their essay story they tell probably made up about a guard who fainted on his first day from the smell alone, collapsed right into a puddle of something unspeakable, and never returned. The other guards laughed for weeks. It's not that the Romans didn't know about hygiene. They had baths, latrines, sewer systems, but not here. Not for you. Prisons were beyond the reach of those luxuries. A different Rome entirely. Historians still argue whether the filth was neglect or design. Some claim it was deliberate, that the stench was meant to break your spirit faster. Others think no one cared enough to clean. Either way, it works. You've stopped thinking of yourself as clean, or even human. You're just part of it now. The ceiling drips, not fast, just a slow, steady plink. You start counting. You always do. 1, 2, 3, drip, drip. It's like a lullaby. And here's your offbeat historical tidbit of the night. Some Romans believed that certain smells could ward off disease. They'd carry little bags of herbs or perfume around their necks, convinced it would protect them. But in here, no amount of lavender can overpower this. You shift slightly and feel something soft brush your hand. You recoil. It's a rat. No, just cloth. A rag soaked through. Maybe once used to bandage someone, or maybe to cover their face when they stopped breathing. You push it aside, breathe through your mouth. Across from you, someone is whispering a prayer. Not in Latin, Greek, maybe, or something older. You don't recognize it, but the rhythm is soothing. Even the rats pause for it. For a moment, the chamber is quiet, not peaceful, but still. Like the prison itself is listening. Then a scream erupts from below. You freeze. Everyone does. It's the lower chamber, the La Tumia. Someone's been taken down, and now they realize what that means. The scream fades fast, not because they stopped, but because they were silenced. You wonder if it's better up here, if this is mercy. Then you look around, and you're not so sure. Marinus leans into you, not touching, just near. You feel his breath, ragged and fast. You don't say anything. What's there to say? The bowl is empty. The rats return. You close your eyes. Try to remember the sky. The cells never stop echoing. You're still in the Tullianum, breathing stale air, your legs curled to your chest on the cold rock floor. Hours blend together, not just from the absence of sunlight, but because time has no meaning down here. You blink, and it might be morning or midnight. The only clock is the slow, crawling ache in your back and the growling protest of your stomach. The air is heavy with mildew, coppery hints of blood, and something else decay, maybe. You're not alone, and you never are. The space is cramped, but there's always room for more prisoners. You shuffle your weight slightly and bump a shoulder, then an elbow. Another prisoner groans in his sleep. Or is it delirium? You stop moving. You don't want to wake anyone. Down here, a tired man is quiet. But a hungry man, a broken man, is dangerous. Sanitation is non-existent. That pit in the corner, like a second skin of sickness crawling over your pores. Historians debate whether the Romans understood germ theory, of course. They didn't, but they certainly knew rot, knew that smells could mean death. They just didn't care enough to fix it for you. You close your eyes to try to drift off, but the sounds don't let you. A cough, phlegmy and deep. Someone muttering a prayer, another whispering to himself in a language you don't recognize. Rats scrabble overhead. No underfoot. That one just brushed your ankle. You sit bolt upright, heart racing. In ancient Rome, if you were lucky, you were sentenced to exile. If you were less lucky, to execution. But worst of all was indefinite detention. See, Roman prisons weren't meant to rehabilitate anyone. They weren't even meant to punish. They were places to store you until someone decided what to do with you. And no one is in a hurry, especially not if you're a foreigner, a slave, or just unlucky. Some inmates die in here simply because no one remembered to schedule their trial. Others die before their paperwork makes it up the bureaucratic ladder. A scratched-out name, a clerk who spilled wine on your scroll. You're just a whisper in a sea of parchment. There's a strange case that floats to the top of those records Marcus Atilius Regulus. Though most accounts place his execution outside the prison, some fringe historians believe he may have died inside the Tullianum, executed by starvation. Whether this is true or a poetic exaggeration, the legend persists. The idea of dying slowly, ignored, tucked beneath Rome's shining marble monuments, sounds about right. You stretch your legs, only to wince as a sharp edge digs into your heel. Bones, human bones. They're not cleaned out, often some say never. What's a better deterrent than the skull of the man who last sat in your spot? And don't forget the psychological games. Guards are bored. Sometimes they feed only one man, or they drop a crust of bread just out of reach to watch a dozen prisoners scramble and fight. It's sport to them, one popular pastime. Lowering buckets of wine with a noose, just to yank it away at the last second. Ah, Roman entertainment gladiators weren't the only ones bleeding for an audience. But let's say you do manage to sleep. The dreams are worse. You hear your own voice echoing the plea of thousands before you. Just kill me already. It's not hyperbole. Most prisoners in the Tullianum didn't beg for mercy. They begged for death. Clean, final, quick. Because there's no warmth here, no sunbeam, no breeze, just the cold knowledge that you're forgotten. Rome bustles overhead, senators and traders walking the very stones above your head, arguing politics and prices. And yet, you're beneath it literally and socially, out of sight, out of mind. There's a niche dug into the wall near your foot. Someone's carved a name into it, or part of one. The rest is gone, eroded or scratched out. You wonder if anyone will ever remember yours, if your name will outlive your body. You smirk, highly unlikely. You hear chains now, not the ones on your wrists. Those are quiet. These are heavier, dragging closer to the stairs. New prisoners, maybe, or a guard. Maybe today's the day. You breathe deeply, even though the air burns. There's a moment, silence, nothing changes. You learn to count your days by the sounds, not by the sun, not by a calendar, but by the rhythm of suffering. A distant scream, that's one marker. The slosh of the water bucket being dragged in, that's another. You think it's daily, but it might be every 2 days. Hunger distorts time. Sometimes you hear Latin, sometimes Greek. Once faintly, you swore someone was speaking Hebrew. Rome collects prisoners like a trophy room of the defeated. You're starting to smell like everyone else. Not just sweat and filth, but despair. It clings to you. Despair has a scent, it's metallic thick, like the air before a lightning strike. The rats are getting bolder. One crawled across your chest last night, and you didn't swat it away. You just watched it go. There's something oddly comforting about its presence. At least it's alive. At least it doesn't care who you were before. A slave who looked a patrician in the eye. Maybe even a senator who fell out of favor. The Tullianum doesn't discriminate, devours. And then there's the execution hole. You haven't seen it, but you've heard it. Sometimes the guards pull someone out. They don't return. They call it the Tullianum proper, but it's really the Lautamia death cell carved straight into the bedrock. No windows, no door, just an iron grate above. When it's time, they open it and lower the condemned down by rope. You strain your ears and you hear the gurgle, the last scream. Maybe they're strangled, maybe clubbed, maybe left to starve. No one really knows because no one comes back. But the silence afterward, that's what sticks. The kind of silence that hums in your ears like bees trapped in a jar. Others say he laughed at the Romans with his final breath. Either way, no body was returned. The Republic doesn't give back corpses, and if you die in here, you're not buried with rights. No coins for Chiron, no final words. You're thrown out like offal. Your soul, if you believe in such things, simply wanders. A fellow inmate muttered something yesterday. This place is a mouth, and it only spits out bones. You haven't forgotten it, but what haunts you most isn't the noise, or even the violence. It's the stories, because every prisoner tells them out loud or to themselves. Stories of who they were, what they loved, what they hoped for. You heard one man recount his entire wedding day from memory. Another recited the Iliad, start to finish, teeth chattering. Maybe it's to stay sane. Maybe it's to hold on to identity. Or maybe it's to remind the stones that you existed. You caught yourself doing it last night, whispering your mother's name. Your village, the taste of honey bread. Because the worst punishment in Rome wasn't torture. It wasn't even death. It was erasure. And the Tullianum is an eraser, chiseling away your humanity with every hour, until you're just a voice, then just a body, then just a stain. Others faint scratched by fingernails. One reads simply, Nan, sum, oblitus, I am not forgotten. You add your own. Not your name, not a story, just one line. I was here. Because in the bowels of the greatest empire on earth, surrounded by rot, forgotten by time, that's all you can leave behind. It begins with a whisper that something is changing. The guards are moving differently, quieter, sharper. You notice it first in the way they don't linger by the grates. No idle jokes, no shared wine, no stomping of boots just to assert power. Instead, they shuffle, mumble, glance down the hallway as if they, too, are afraid. Something is coming. Not the usual silence of resignation, but something taut, expectant, the calm that comes when even rats hesitate to crawl. Then the iron gate above creaks open. You can hear torches being lit. 1, 2, 3, guided down the stairs by 2 soldiers with a caution you've never seen before. They don't shove him. They almost seem to guard him from the darkness. He doesn't look around, doesn't flinch at the smell, doesn't react when a drop of sewer water plops beside his feet. He just walks, like he's been here before. Someone near you mutters, "A Jew." You squint. He does wear the simple robe of a traveler, dusty, frayed, no sandals, just raw feet and a tired face. But there's something else, a weight not physical, but heavy. Like the air around him bends. Like this man's story is already legend, even though he hasn't spoken a word. The soldiers open a smaller cell, not one of the usual holes. This one is lower, older. There's something ancient etched into the arch, above it words. In Greek you can quite make out, half covered by soot. One of the guards crosses himself, the other spits. The man is led inside. You blink, you've heard stories. A man who once hunted Christians, now one of their leaders, said to have traveled through Asia, preaching about a Messiah who conquered death. Some make signs of respect, others shrink away, afraid of what his presence might mean. Rome doesn't throw people like that into just any prison. They save this pit for messages, for warnings, for silencing dangerous men. Not loudly, not to all, just to the man across from him. A young thief, barely 20, scared, twitching. Paul leans toward him, voice steady. You can't hear all the words, but you hear enough. Mercy, grace, love. The young man begins to cry, not from fear, but from something deeper, a release, a homecoming. And for the first time since you arrived, you feel something other than dread. You feel warmth, not from the torches, from the man. He continues talking to the guards, to the older man who hasn't spoken in days, to the ceiling, to the stone, like he's planting seeds in soil that hasn't felt rain in years. You listen, against your own instincts, against the voice that tells you it's pointless. You listen, because in this place where bones vanish and names are erased, his voice lingers. He speaks as if he knows this is not the end, as if there's more beyond the iron gate. Can a soul? Paul smiles at nothing, and you think maybe? Nights in the Tullianum stretch, like wounds, long, deep, and slow to heal. But with Paul in the cell, something shifts. The silence, once suffocating, now feels like listening. The echoes of chains and shallow breathing are still there. Yes, but they now share space with low murmurs, with quiet songs hummed just above the edge of hearing, and with prayers spoken not to beg, but to believe. It confuses you at first. How can this man, this prisoner, act as though he's already free? His body is broken, his wrists red from iron, his back marked with the scars of old whips. And yet, Every word from his mouth carries the certainty of someone who has walked through fire and did not burn. He doesn't preach like the temple men outside, no lofty speeches, no thunderous condemnation. He talks like he's speaking to friends by a fire, like he knows you, and soon it spreads. The old thief in the corner, the one who snarled at shadows, now listens with his head bowed. The soldier who brought Paul food 2 nights ago asked him a question, just one, and stayed 3 steps longer than needed to hear the answer. Even the rats seemed to move quieter, as if unwilling to interrupt. You try to resist it, because you remember what this place is: a tomb for the living, a sewer of forgotten names. You remember what you've seen: men dragged out and never returned, screams that didn't even echo, the priest who wept blood before he stopped breathing. You need to remember, because if you let hope in, even a sliver, and this all ends in silence, again, what then? But Paul makes forgetting hard. One morning, or maybe it's nighttime, no longer matters. The gate opens, and another man is thrown down. Younger, lean, Greek, by the look of him. His nose is bleeding, and his robe is torn at the shoulder. He lands hard, cursing, in a hoarse whisper. Paul moves instantly, helps him sit up, tears a strip of cloth from his own robe to dab the blood. The newcomer stares at him, stunned. He doesn't thank him, doesn't smile, just stares. And then he says, "You're the one from Corinth." Paul nods slowly. "I was there." The young man breathes like he's trying not to cry. "I heard you speak. I didn't believe you then." Paul only answers, "You're here now." You don't know what the words mean, not really. But you watch them crack something inside the young Greek. Not in shame, but in recognition. As if, for the first time in this filthy hole, he is not alone. Later, when everyone else dozes off, you whisper across the cell, "Do you really believe what you say?" Paul opens his eyes. His face is calm. "Yes, but they'll kill you." A pause. "Then they already tried." You lean forward, unsure if you heard right. He continues, "I was stoned outside Lystra, left for dead, beaten with rods in Philippi, shipwrecked, chained, hunted." He touches the wall lightly, as if it's a page in a book. "This cell is not the worst place I've been, and not the last place I'll speak." You shake your head. But why? Why keep going? Why speak at all if no one listens? Paul's eyes meet yours, because someone always does. Even one is enough. You fall silent, and the words take root. You remember nights before the arrest, when you begged the gods for signs, when you wondered if anything you did mattered, when you feared dying alone, unseen, unheard. And here, in this rotting place that the empire uses to erase men, you are seen. He makes you feel real again. Like your name might matter, after all. Like you are more than just a body, waiting to be forgotten. It happens slowly, almost too slowly for you to notice. Not your clothes, not your chains, not the aching joints from sleeping on stone. All that remains the same, but something deeper shifts. The way you listen, the way you think, the way you wait. You still wake with dread at first. Every shuffle of feet above, every turn of a key in a lock, still tightens your chest. But the panic doesn't last as long. It gives way to focus. The way light glints off rusted iron, the tone of Paul's voice when he prays, the rhythm of another prisoner's breathing, like a tide rising and falling in the dark. It doesn't feel like hope, not yet, but it feels like remembering you're human. Paul tells stories when the guards let him speak. Other times, they're more like letters, spoken out loud, as though the people they're meant for might hear through stone. He doesn't speak about escape or revenge or even justice. He speaks about grace, not because they understand everything he says, but because, somehow, they feel it. You do too. One night, you ask him, "Did you ever hate them? The ones who hurt you?" Paul's answer is quiet. "I was one of them." You blink. "What?" "I hated the people I now call brothers. I hunted them. I dragged them from their homes. I thought I was right." Your breath catches. "What changed?" "I fell," he says, "blinded on the road to Damascus, struck by a voice I had denied my whole life. And in that blindness, I saw clearer than I ever had." You stare at him in the dark. Paul, the voice of calm in chaos, the man who smiles while in chains, was once worse than the guards who mock him now. And somehow, that gives you comfort. Because if someone like that can change, maybe you can too. Weeks passed, or perhaps it's months. Sometimes new prisoners come, others disappear. Some die, some are carried out like sacks of grain, their faces already forgotten. But Paul stays, and with him, the strange glow in this hole of rot and despair stays, too. One morning, the guards enter not with beatings, but with a list. They call out names. Yours is not among them, but Paul's is. He doesn't flinch. He closes his eyes and breathes once, deeply. When he opens them, he looks at you not with fear, but with something softer, warmer, peace. "They've summoned me," he says. "To what?" You ask, though you already know. "To die," Paul answers. You want to speak, to stop them, to shout that it's wrong. But Paul lifts a hand. "Don't weep," he says. "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." And then he smiles. What's next is only gain. The guards unchain him. It's sorrow, yes, but also awe. Paul leaves the Mamertine prison like a king stepping into light, not broken, not conquered, whole. And then he's gone. You sit alone in your corner that night. Sleep doesn't come. And in the silence, you whisper a prayer, not one of begging, but of thanks, for the man who passed through your darkness and left behind a flame. You don't hear the execution. No screams echo through the stones. No trumpet of final words. No sounds at all, just silence, thick and eternal. As if Rome itself held its breath. But in the stillness, you know, Paul is gone. And the Mamertine feels different now. Not darker, though it should be. His voice is gone. His presence erased. But somehow, the cell isn't emptier. If anything, it hums. Like something sacred still lingers in the stones. You find yourself speaking less and listening more. To the guards, to the rats, even to your own thoughts. And sometimes, though it's strange to admit, you talk to Paul, not out loud, but in your heart, you hear him. You remember his stories. Not the ones about seas and cities, but the ones about people. About a woman who touched a cloak and was healed. About a man blind from birth who saw again. About a runaway slave forgiven. About a soldier who watched someone die and finally believed. And most of all, about a carpenter who became a king, not by sword, but by sacrifice. You think of that a lot, because the Mamertine has shown you every flavor of cruelty, power twisted into punishment, authority used as a club. But Paul had a different kind of strength, the kind that sang when it should have wept, the kind that forgave when it had every right to curse. And somehow, that kind of strength frightens you more than all the violence you've seen, because it asks something of you. It asks you to change. And for a man whose life has been chained in anger shame, and silence. Change is the hardest prison of all. One day, a guard drops a loaf of bread near your feet. He says nothing, doesn't look at you, but the bread isn't moldy. It's fresh, warm. You stare at it, blinking. The man who replaces Paul doesn't speak Latin. He's a rough-faced Gaul with eyes like frost, but he watches you. Every time you murmur a prayer, every time you hum a hymn Paul taught you, the Gaul cocks his head like a dog hearing music for the first time. He doesn't understand the words, but something reaches him anyway. You teach him Paul's name. You say it slowly, then point to the heavens. Paulus, you whisper, gone. But here, the Gaul frowns. Then, slowly, clumsily, he repeats, Paulus, you nod. A month later, he's the one who brings water when the bucket runs dry. He breaks a piece of his own rations and slides it through the grate. He still doesn't speak, but his silence no longer bites, it listens. You carve crosses into the wall when no one watches, tiny ones, dozens of them, not to mark time, but to remember something greater than time, something eternal. You start to pray again, not just at night, but when the sun climbs above the narrow slits in the stone, when the rats scatter, when you breathe without coughing, you pray not for rescue, but for courage, not for vengeance, but for mercy. And slowly your soul begins to rise, even if your body remains buried. Other prisoners come and go. Some shout, some cry. A few try to kill themselves with scraps of iron. But some see the carvings on the wall, hear your whispered songs, and they begin to sit closer, to ask questions. You are not Paul. You'll never be Paul. But sometimes, when your voice steadies and your eyes soften and your words find the heart of a man who thought he was beyond saving, you understand. You're not here to escape this place. You're here to transform it, or rather, let it transform you. It doesn't matter how long you stay, whether death comes in days or decades, because you're no longer counting, you're becoming. And one day, though, no one will carve your name into marble or sing your deeds in basilicas. Someone will remember that even in Rome's darkest hole, a light remained, not because of stone or strength, but because someone chose to love. You don't mark the days anymore, not because time has ceased to matter, but because it no longer rules you. The Mamertine taught you that the calendar is a Roman god, and like all Roman gods, it demands worship through fear. You're done fearing. The Gaul dies one winter, fever, likely. It swept through the upper cells before the frost reached you. He left without ceremony, just a slump against the far wall. It feels like a small funeral, and maybe that's enough. By then, you've become part of the stone. The guards know you. Some nod. One even calls you Monachus monk. It's not what you are, not officially, but the name fits like worn leather. Some snarl, some shake, some sleep too long and too deeply, like they've come here to die rather than wait for death. You don't rush them. You've learned patience, not as a strategy, but as an act of love. Some eventually ask what the crosses mean. You tell them. You speak plainly, like someone passing a secret across a dying fire. A name, a story, a carpenter, a cross. Some scoff, some weep, some listen. You've also learned that salvation never enters like a trumpet. It sneaks in through cracked walls, whispered lullabies, shared bread, or a hand reaching into the dark. Silence means one of two things: death or decision. Footsteps echo above. Too many to be just the guards. Armor clinks. Authority arrives. You're being summoned. You don't panic. There's nothing left to be taken. Your body, it's already scarred and aging. Your name, forgotten, above ground. Your faith, still. Your heart stirs when the hatch creaks open and pale morning light slices down like a blade from heaven. To soldiers descend, but they don't bind you. Instead, they lower a ladder. You blink at it. It's been decades since you've seen one. It looks absurdly tall, like a relic from a forgotten world. You climb. Your legs ache. Your hands slip. The sunlight stabs at your eyes. And then you emerge. But not the Rome you knew. The streets are quieter, the air less metallic, the people thinner, poorer, more cautious. Statues are weathered, temples cracked. Time has not spared even the gods. You're led not to a courtroom, but to a garden. A garden. You almost laugh aloud. Grass, dirt, trees. Your eyes sting. Your fingers twitch. You long to touch everything, to press your cheek against the bark of the cypress, and weep for no reason at all. There, beneath an olive tree, waits a woman, draped in plain wool, older, her eyes soft but strong, her hands folded. This is the one, she tells the guards. Leave us. They obey. You hesitate. This woman, this free woman, knows you. I've heard of you, she says. They said there's a man in the lower prison who sings. You tilt your head. I sang with Paul once, you say, before they took him. She nods. He wrote to us, to those who still gather in secret. He mentioned a voice from the darkness, said even hell couldn't silence it. You chuckle. He always exaggerated. She smiles. No, she says. He just saw the flame when the rest of us were staring at the ash. She hands you something, a scroll, sealed, untouched. You recognize the mark. Paul, his last letter. You can't speak. There are people, she says, quietly, who still need to hear. Then she looks you in the eyes. Are you ready to leave? You stagger, leave. The Mamertine has been your grave, your temple, your world. Could you walk among the living again? Could you speak of freedom without choking on its strangeness? The scroll trembles in your hand, and somewhere inside you a spark, not of courage, not even of clarity, just a whisper, not yet words, but enough. You nod, and in that nod, something ancient breaks, not a chain, but permission. To live again. You don't ask where she's taking you, not because you don't care but because it doesn't matter. Anywhere is resurrection after years in the pit. She introduces herself only as Lydia. No surname, no title, just Lydia. You walk behind her through alleyways too narrow for carts, past doorways that whisper incense and stale bread, through Rome's underbelly familiar, yet aged. It smells different now. Less blood, more rot. The kind of rot that comes when an empire begins to forget it's dying. You're led to a house behind a tannery, modest, crumbling at the edges. Inside, silence. Then a creak. A face peers out from behind a curtain, young, cautious. Another follows. An old man with one eye, a girl no older than 10, a mother with a babe asleep on her chest. Lydia nods, and they part. The room is small. Clay lamps line the walls. A wooden bowl of olives rests beside loaves still warm from an unseen oven. In one corner, a bundle of scrolls tied with leather strips. In another, a battered lyre, missing 2 strings. They've been waiting for you, or rather for someone. Someone like Paul, someone like Peter, someone who remembers the darkness, who knows the weight of silence, who still believes in light. You don't feel worthy, but you sit, and slowly the questions begin. not theological debates, not rituals or arguments about Hebrew law or Roman edicts. Simple things. Is it true he walked on water? Did he really touch lepers? Why did he forgive the soldier who beat him? And finally, did he ever seem afraid? You look into the eyes of the boy who asked. His tunic is patched with care. His hands are small, ink-stained. You smile. All the time you say, but he never let fear win. There's silence. Then someone begins to hum, not a hymn, not yet, just a melody. It's familiar. You hum along, then others join, and suddenly the room, this cramped room in the bowels of a dying empire, becomes the upper room again, the one in Jerusalem, the one with oil lamps and breaking bread, the one where fear breathed heavy but love louder. Afterward, Lydia shows you a small chamber. You can rest here, a straw mat, a jug of water, a blanket sewn from old tunics. It is more than luxury. It's sanctuary. You don't sleep right away. Instead, you unfurl the scroll. Paul's handwriting, rough, pressed too hard, like he was racing death. You read the first line, "To the brothers and sisters who have not seen, yet still believe." You stop. Tears come unbidden, because you're not reading words. You're hearing him in that same voice that used to thunder through the Murmurtine's stone. You read until the oil lamp gutters. Then, by memory, you recite in the dark, to no one, to everyone. In the days that follow, you learn the rhythms of the house. By night, they gather. By day, they scatter to markets, to workshops, to homes where children must still eat and tyrants must still be appeased. You remain, you write. Not because you're a scribe, but because someone must remember. You write of the pit, of Paul, of Peter's final walk, of songs sung while shackled, of the silence between screams, and the comfort found inside it. You're not a preacher. You're a witness. That's enough. One evening, a knock on the back door, 3 soft taps, a pause, then 2, a code. Lydia answers. You hear murmuring, then she returns with news. The man from Ephesus is here. You remember Ephesus, a great city, a cauldron of ideas, idols, and trade. Paul loved it and feared for it. The man who enters is cloaked, tall, with a limp. He bows low before Lydia, then turns to you. I've heard, he says. You knew him. You nod. I did. He unrolls a satchel. Inside, more scrolls, letters, some from Antioch, others from Corinth, even one smuggled from Britannia. The message is spreading, faster than prisons can hold, faster than emperors can crush. It's wildfire, not of rage, but of remembrance. He gestures to you. Will you teach? You hesitate. You've spent so long in chains. The idea of standing in the open feels like standing naked. But you remember Paul's voice. What is life but a moment to spend? So you say, yes. That night, you stand in a catacomb, a hollowed-out chamber beneath a cemetery. 24 faces lit by torchlight. A child sleeps on her mother's shoulder. A man sharpens a fishing hook, listening without lifting his head. A Roman soldier off duty, still in tunics, sits at the back, fingers twitching near his dagger. And you speak. Not as a prophet, not as a hero, but as a man who survived. You tell them about the dungeon, the songs, the silence. The day they took Paul Awand, how he didn't scream. You tell them the truth, that faith isn't about fearlessness. It's about choosing to sing, even when your throat is dry and the air tastes of blood. When you finish, no one claps. They don't need to. You have passed something on, something heavier than stone and lighter than light. You are not a priest. You are a bridge from one age of fire to the next. You're huddled again in the corner of the prison, exhausted by the constant aches in your joints and the never-ending darkness, when you begin to notice something odd. It's not a smell this time, nor a sound. It's a presence vague, slinking through the stale air, brushing past like a cold draft. But there are no windows, no doors creak open, and yet someone or something is here. Welcome to the invisible rot of paranoia, one of the cruelest tortures of ancient Roman imprisonment. By this point in your incarceration, days blur into nights, and nights into a heavy, dreamless void. Roman prisons were not designed to kill you quickly. That would be far too kind. Instead, they unstitched your mind, one hallucination, one echo, one whispered rumor at a time. You start to hear things soft breathing when no one's near, shuffling feet in a locked chamber. Was that your cellmate mumbling in his sleep, or is he dead again? Historians still argue whether these mental breakdowns were solely the result of malnutrition and isolation, or if Roman captors deliberately fostered psychological decay. Some sources suggest that guards intentionally whispered lies to prisoners, false news about family betrayals, rumors of imperial pardons that never came, or fabricated letters from loved ones urging them to confess to crimes they didn't commit. You can't trust your own thoughts in here, and that's the point. The mind, when left untended, turns on itself. Take, for example, the peculiar Roman belief that prisons were haunted by spirits of the wrongly condemned. But now you're not so sure. You've seen enough shadows moving where no light exists. One prisoner, according to a surviving Roman folktale, began scratching the stone walls with his fingernails, convinced there was a hidden passage that could free him. He died with torn fingers and a collapsed lung, still digging at solid rock. Did he lose his mind from dehydration? Or was he just trying to escape something unseen in the cell behind him? And then there's the silence, deafening, heavy. You begin to hate it. It presses on your chest, urging your brain to make noise, just so you don't lose track of your own voice. You start talking to yourself, not in your head, but out loud. Maybe you sing old songs. Maybe you recite laws you once heard in the forum. It doesn't matter. You just need sound. It's why some prisoners intentionally provoked guards to be screamed at, to be acknowledged, even to be struck. Pain meant reality. You begin making rituals, scratching 3 marks in the dirt before drinking water, blinking twice before sitting down, whispering your mother's name under your breath each morning. You're not religious, but faith becomes the final thread between you and total dissolution. Even scholars today debate whether ancient Roman prisons were worse than their medieval successors, precisely because of this psychological element. The Romans didn't need iron maidens or execution racks inside the cell. The room itself, the silence, the dimness, the lack of a future was the torture. The prisoner became both the captor and the condemned. Let's not forget the informants. Yes, even in here, betrayal blooms like mold. Desperate men offered information on their fellow prisoners, real or fabricated, in exchange for a few extra crumbs or a sliver of fresh air. Some even sold out their own family members. You learn to watch your back, even when you're chained against a wall. You think of Cato the Younger again, imprisoned for standing against Caesar. When he realized what Roman imprisonment really meant, he disemboweled himself rather than endure one more day in captivity. It's grim, but also understandable. When your thoughts are still, when your body doesn't ache too much, when you forget for a few seconds that you're in prison at all. That is the scariest feeling of all, because it means you're adapting, that the madness has nestled in and made itself at home. One of the few surviving Roman prison graffiti reads, Fides est mortua hic. Faith is dead here, but not you, not yet. You hum softly under your breath, something from your childhood. A lullaby, maybe, or a march. Hard to remember. Still, you whisper, I am not gone, I am not gone. And the walls murmur back with the same rhythm. You wake to a scratching noise. For a moment, you think it's back the rodent, the one that chewed at your toe. But then you realize it's higher up, against the wall, too deliberate to be an animal. Someone's etching something into the stone. Not in your cell, not quite, it's next door. A low voice, hoarse from disuse, follows the sound. At first, it's just murmurs, indecipherable syllables. Then, clearly, dies est numeratus. The days are numbered. You press your ear against the wall, more out of instinct than hope. Human contact, a voice other than your own. The man on the other side doesn't acknowledge you. He keeps scratching, whispering. He sounds old. His Latin is too formal, too precise. A scribe, maybe, a philosopher, or a lunatic who thinks he's both. You whisper back, quizzes to, who are you? No answer. You lie back, but you feel different. That moment reminded you of the world beyond your skull, of the fact that other prisoners, like you, are clinging to sanity through the tiniest cracks in the wall. The Romans might have built these prisons as places to forget the condemned, but within them a strange ecosystem of endurance formed, a fragile, echoing society of survivors. Eventually, you meet the lictors. These aren't the jailers who bring water and crusts of bread. These are Caesar's special men enforcers, sometimes executioners. They come in pairs, dressed in dark cloaks, their bundled rods slung over their shoulders like grim trophies. Fasces, they're called, a bound collection of sticks, sometimes with an axe in the center. You know what it means? Power, punishment, authority granted by the state. Today, they come for someone down the hall. There's no ceremony, no announcement, just the sound of a door creaking open and a body being dragged. The man they take doesn't scream. That's the worst part. He doesn't even resist. The lictors have mastered the art of extinguishing hope long before sentencing begins. No one ever asks if you're ready. They simply come. This is how Roman justice worked, slowly at first, then all at once. Your trial, if you get one, happens behind closed doors. No lawyers, no defense, just an accuser, a magistrate, and your name on a wax tablet. Most trials never reach the forum. If you're lucky, your crime is minor petty theft, insult to a senator, breaking curfew, and you'll be fined, exiled, or even released with a warning. But if you're unlucky, if your crime was against the emperor himself, you'll face a punishment so complete, so symbolic, that even your name will be wiped from memory. Damnatio memoria. Erasure from public records. Statues smashed, coins melted, your family forbidden to speak of you. You hear it from a guard. Someone in the upper cells received a sentence of death by exposure. He'll be taken to the Tullianum dungeon, within a dungeon, where the accused are left to starve in darkness, sometimes ankle-deep in sewage. That place is older than the Republic itself. Some say it was built by Rome's first kings to hold monsters, not men. Your cellmate tells you a story, half whispered, half chanted, that during Nero's purges, prisoners were strangled and their bodies flung into the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer, to be washed away like waste. You think it's legend, until you realize it's plausible, practical even. You're not sure what day it is anymore. You've started counting meals instead of sunsets. You've lost track of whether it's spring or summer. The cold never really leaves, even when the air grows damp and warm. Your skin is yellowing in patches. Your legs feel distant, detached, and yet there's a new sound. Horses, carts, bells from the market above. Could it be that you're close to the outer wall? That there's a world, still breathing, just a stone's throw away? It strikes you as both comforting and cruel. People are shopping, laughing, selling figs, and here you are, below them, half forgotten. You press your palm to the stone wall again. It's warm, not from sunlight, from heat within the earth itself. You imagine Rome as a living creature, its heart, the synod, its blood, the roads, and you. You're in its bowels, digested, forgotten, but not gone. You dream again. This time, you're in the forum. A crowd cheers. Someone is speaking. It's U-boot, not you, a cleaner version. Well-fed, the people chant your name. And then a lictor steps forward, raises the fascisand. The dream ends. You awaken with tears on your face. You're still here. You've started naming the rats. There's one with a torn ear you call Brutus. Another with a limp you've named Cicero. It's not affection, it's necessity. The mind, deprived of faces, invents them, whether in rodents or shadows or memories. Cicero watches you as you nibble your ration. You're not sure who owns the bread anymore, you or him, but at least the arrangement feels familiar. The silence is heavier these days. Not quiet. Trome is never silent, but below the surface, you begin to hear things you're not sure are real. Echoes from tunnels that shouldn't connect. Voices with no source. Screams that don't end. Sometimes the guards hear them too. You saw one flinch once. He looked down the hall, mouth dry, lips pale, fingers tight on his spear. Maybe even they don't understand what's buried here. One night, the scratching returns. This time, not from the wall, from beneath the floor. It starts soft like sand shifting, but soon becomes more rhythmic, intentional. You press your ear to the stone slab, and the cold pulses with something faint, like someone digging or clawing. Your breath stops. It's not the kind of fear you can scream about. It's the kind that fills you with silence. You sit in the corner, knees to your chest, and you wait for it to stop. It doesn't. Eventually, you fall asleep anyway. You wake to find a mark on the wall. Not yours, not the old man's, a spiral, carved with precision. Not Roman, not familiar, just wrong. There are whispers in the prison-hushed exchanges between guards when they think the prisoners can't hear. Someone important has been arrested, a patrician, maybe even a senator. The prison tightens. There are more soldiers now, more whispers, more torches flickering against the wet walls. Everyone's nervous, though no one says why. One of the guards, younger than the rest, pauses at your cell longer than usual. His eyes linger on the mark. You ask him what it is. He doesn't answer, but his jaw clenches, and he walks away faster than before. You hear him muttering in Latin, something about the old rites and forbidden symbols. Later, you hear a scream, not of pain, but of ecstasy. It echoes for minutes. The guards don't react. That's the worst part. They hear it. but they don't care, or they've heard it before. The air changes after that, heavier. It smells like rot, but also something sweet beneath it, like honey gone bad. You check your water, it's clean. Your bread is stale, but normal. Still, your mouth tastes of metal. Your dreams grow redder. That night, you dream of the Colosseum. It's full, cheering, but the games are wrong. The arena is dark, the sand wet. You're there not as a spectator, not as a gladiator, but as an offering. A creature emerges from the shadows, not a lion, not a man, something older, cloaked in feathers and bronze. You don't run, you kneel, you wake up, smiling, you don't know why. The next day, your neighbor, the scratching man, finally speaks again. This time, he's not chanting, he's laughing, not a laugh of joy. The kind of laugh people give when they've figured out the punchline to the universe. It echoes into your cell. You whisper to him, ask if he's all right. He whispers back a single word, liberatus, freed. But you hear the guards later that day. There was no release, there was only blood, and his door never opened. The man in the cell is gone, or maybe he was never really there. You try to scratch through the wall to confirm, but your fingers are weak. Your nail breaks. You press your eye to a crack. Nothing. Darkness. One night, finally, a guard speaks to you. He tells you your trial is soon. 2 days, 3, maybe less. He doesn't look at you when he says it. He doesn't even stop walking. He says your name, says be ready, and keeps moving. What's strange is, you're not afraid. You've made peace with things, with the hunger, with the filth, even with the death, but not with the dreams. They won't leave you. You don't know where they come from, but they feel older than Rome, older than you. You hear thunder above. Rain is rare in Rome this season, but tonight it comes heavy. It trickles through cracks in the ceiling. Cold rivulets down your back, and still the rats come. The same to Brutus and Cicero. You share the crust with them, and in that moment it feels like communion. Like your 3 old senators in exile, mourning the fall of your republic. You close your eyes, and you say the name of your father. You say the name of your sister. You say the name of the girl you once kissed on the Tiber Bridge. Their faces blur, but the names stay. Like tiny fires in the fog, the trial will come, the sentence will come. But until then, you remember. Because that's what the prison fears most. Not escape, not rebellion, but memory. You are not led to the forum or the Senate for your trial. Instead, they bring you to a small, circular chamber buried beneath the Capitoline Hill. You've never seen this place before. You're not meant to. No torches line the walls, only braziers that burn with a greenish smoke. The air stings your eyes, and the guards wear cloth over their faces. You aren't told what you're accused of. There is no magistrate, no tribunal, only 5 men in dark cloaks, seated in a half-circle. One wears a mask of wood carved into the likeness of Janus, the god of doorways. His voice, when he speaks, comes in 2 tones, one male, one female. You have been seen, he says, not heard, not judged, just seen. They do not ask if you confess. They do not ask if you are guilty. They ask what you have dreamed. You hesitate. They tell you not to lie. They will know. You begin to speak of the arena, of the cloaked creature, of the spiral on the wall, of Brutus and Cicero, of the man in the cell who chanted and laughed and vanished. You expect laughter, derision. Instead, they nod, as if your dreams are a report, as if they have been waiting for confirmation. The one with the Janus mask leans forward. You are marked, he says. You saw it on the wall. You have spoken it in sleep. You belong to the ones below, now. Then he adds a single word that makes your knees weaken. Vinyas, come forth. The guards grab your arms, not roughly, but with ceremony. You're no longer a prisoner. You are an offering, or an envoy, or perhaps a message. They take you down a staircase hidden beneath the chamber. Not hewn stone, but carved bedrock, ancient. The steps are worn by centuries. The air grows colder. The torches do not flicker. There is no wind. The silence deepens as you descend. Your ears ring. Your thoughts become heavy. At the bottom is a door. Not Roman, no hinges, just a smooth slab with a spiral carved into the center. You recognize it instantly. It's the same as the one in your cell, the same one that came after the scratching. One of the masked figures places a hand on your shoulder. You expect a blessing, but he whispers, "Do not speak once you pass through. Do not ask questions. Do not look back." They push the door inward with great effort. It moves, not like stone, but like skin stretched taut over something ancient. Behind it, there is no room, just a descent into blackness. They shove you in. You don't fall. You float. Your feet leave the stone. Your body buoyed by something thick and unseen. The air hums, not sound, but vibration, like a chord being held on a distant instrument. Shapes move in the dark, not shadows. Shadows require light. These are forms, breathing, watching. They don't speak, but you feel them all around you, testing you, peeling your mind apart like bark. Images flood in, not memories, but memories that might have been, lives you never lived. A temple in Babylon, a battlefield in Gaul, a child born during a lightning storm in Carthage. With your face, you scream, but only inside. Your mouth will not open. A voice finally comes, not from one place, not from one throat, but from all of them. It speaks in your language, but also not. We remember you. The words reverberate in your bones. You cannot move. You cannot think. We gave you the mark in a time before this time. You returned to us, bearer of echoes. You wore the prison. You wore the hunger. Now you wear the spiral. Suddenly, the blackness parts. Like a curtain of oilland, you see a shape, titanic. Not man, not beast, wound in bronze and sinew, covered in masks. It has no face of its own, just layers of others. Greek, Etruscan, Phoenician, Egyptians, some that don't belong to any people you know. It does not move. It only exists. It is waiting, and then you are back, just like that. Lying on the floor of your cell, the spiral still carved into the wall, your rations untouched, your skin cold. The guards don't speak to you anymore. They avert their eyes. No one else shares your cell now. The prisoners whisper about you. They say you died and came back. They say your cell door is never locked, but you do not leave. The scratching never returns. You don't need it, because now you hear the creature without it. Because now you dream not of the aeronub, of the spiral. Because now you understand what the prison really is. It's not a place to contain men. It's a gate, and someone has opened it. You don't remember falling asleep, but you know when you're dreaming. The difference now is that dreams don't feel like dreams. They're structured, ordered. You dream of walking through the alleys of Subura, yet the buildings whisper to you in tongues that predate Latin. You dream of the Senate, but its columns stretch into the sky, hundreds of meters tall. with vines that pulse like veins. You dream of Cicero, Brutus, and your mother only. Their eyes are hollow, and they call you by a name you've never heard. Tertius. In the waking world, something has shifted. Time becomes less predictable. You begin noticing things that don't belong. A coin with two faces of the same man. A mouse that never blinks. A guard who hums the melody that echoed in your arena dream. But, strangest of all, you are no longer afraid. The man who once flinched at lashes, at hunger, at mockery in the forum, now feels cold, steady, ancient. You can feel something alive under your skin, not crawling, not foreign. It's you, only more. A version of yourself traced from forgotten stone tablets, carved by gods long since buried. The guards don't speak to you. They bring food. They leave in silence, except for one. He's young, probably just appointed to his post, with two soft features and trembling hands. One night, as he leaves your water ration, he leans in and whispers, "I saw you in my dream. I was standing in the forum. You opened your mouth and fire came out. The sky turned black." He flees before you can reply. You don't bother calling after him. There's nothing to say. You were in his dream, just as others have begun to appear in yours. All prisoners, all touched by the spiral. The gate is not closed. It never was. It was asleep, and now it's waking. One morning, the door to your cell opens without a sound. No footsteps, no key, just open. You step through, expecting resistance. Nothing stops you. The corridor is empty. No voices, no bells. Just the flicker of torches along the walls. You walk. Not down, not up, just forward. The path should end at a dead wall. You've memorized the layout during your years here, but this time it doesn't. A new hallway waits. It's lined with carvings, not Roman, older. Carvings of men with the heads of animals, of stars falling like raindrops, of spirals, 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 spirals. Every few feet, the pattern repeats. A man kneeling before a towering form that bleeds upward into the sky. The floor beneath you hums with each step. At the end of the passage is a door of black wood, oiled, perfect, unratted, despite the centuries. It doesn't creak. It doesn't open outward or inward. It simply mades, and beyond it is light. You blink. For the first time in years, you feel warmth on your skin. You step out, expecting Rome, but it's not the Rome you remember. This Rome is cracked and grown over, empty streets, buildings split in two as if struck by thunder, statues weeping blood down their marble cheeks. The sky is not blue. It is gray, with veins of crimson lightning lacing the clouds. You look up and see the arena, still towering, but it's inverted now, like a bowl in the sky, pulsing with light from within. People float around it, not flying suspended, trapped, worshipping. You're not sure which, and you know, without question, that this is Rome's future, or perhaps its past, or perhaps the Rome that exists beneath the skin of the present, the version only seen by those who've been opened. A figure approaches you. You know him, the man from the cell, the one who chanted. He wears no chains now, only a simple robe. On his forehead, the spiral is not carved, but grown, like bone from flesh. "Welcome back," he says, smiling softly. "We are almost all assembled." "Who are we?" you ask. He doesn't answer. Instead, he raises his hand, and the people in the sky begin to chant in unison. A low, beautiful, wordless sound that vibrates the stones beneath your feet. Then he says something that chills you more than any Roman whip or beast ever could. You were the last. You don't know what that means. Not yet. But the spiral pulses on your chest, and you feel the gate behind your eyes beginning to open wider. The chant grows louder, not deafening, never violent. It is the sound of inevitability, a tide, not a scream. A lullaby sung by mouths that never sleep. You take a step forward into the ruin of Rome. Grass creeps through cracks in marble. Statues weep molten gold. The air smells like smoke and cinnamon, like incense burned for the dead door, for gods who refuse to die. You pass what was once the Tiber. Now it runs dark red and glistens like a wound, and from its banks rise pillars of bone and ivy, like fingers trying to claw their way back to the surface. But no one cries, no one fights. They kneel in alleyways, on rooftops, in the shade of crumbled basilicas. People kneel blindfolded, murmuring fragments of old languages. They sway to the rhythm of the spiral that now burns beneath your skin. None acknowledge you, yet you feel seen, not as a man, as something returned. You reach the Senate House, or what's left of it. Its walls spiral upward in impossible geometries. Stairs go sideways. Light folds itself like paper. There are no guards, only watchers, tall beings robed in black, with no faces, just voids where faces should be. They do not speak, but you know what they would say. They remember you. The man with the spiral, the one who opened the gate. The chanting stops. You look up. Above you, the arena in the sky opens like a flower. You expect horror. Instead, you see stars, real stars, not the painted ceilings of Roman baths. Galaxies blooming and dying in seconds. Comets curling like serpents through violet clouds. A vision of the cosmos, not as a void, but as a mind, dreaming in slow motion. Something descends. It is not a god. It is not a beast. It is you. Or a version of you, taller, older, eyes like ink. The spiral on his chest glows blue-white, alive with fire. He carries a staff made of knotted wood and bone, topped with a shard of mirror. In the reflection, you see Rome as it once was, and as it never was. You made it, he says, not with words, but with certainty. You nod, though your legs tremble. What is this place? He gestures around you. The Rome that remembers itself. You don't understand. He steps closer, the other you. He raises a hand to your chest and places it over the spiral. You were a body, then a vessel, then a gate. You flinch. A gate for what? He smiles. It's not cruel, it's sad. A truth Rome buried before she was born, before she had walls or names, before men thought they had tamed the old gods. The spiral burns hotter. You fall to your knees. Why me? You whisper. Because you listened. He kneels, too. Because you dreamed. Because you broke when you were supposed to bend. Because when Rome asked for your silence, you gave it a scream. You are crying. You don't know why. The arena pulses above. The sky opens wider, and the other you leans forward and speaks the words that no Roman tongue has dared utter since the founding stone was laid. The words that unlocked the first gate. The words that were burned from every scroll, etched out of every temple, whispered only by dying lips in forgotten caves. You hear them, and your ears bleed, and your eyes see 1,000 versions of Rome stacked atop each other like glass slides, some ruled by emperors with wings, others where lions speak and men crawl, some made only of stone and fire and teeth, all of them spiraling into each other, and you at the center. Then you blink, You're back in your cell. But it's clean, bright. Sunlight pours in through a small window that was never there before. You're not chained. You're dressed in white. Your hands are not scarred. Footsteps approach. It's the same young guard. But he's older now, different. He smiles. Time for your lesson, Tertius. You try to speak, but your voice is gone. He leads you out into a garden. Children run among olive trees. The forum is filled with laughter. Rome is alive, whole, no spirals, no chants, and yet you feel them beneath the stones, whispering, waiting, always waiting. You take a seat on a bench. The wind carries petals across your lap. In the distance, you see the arena, half-built, as if it had never been completed, and beside it, a statue of you, not in chains, not as a gladiator, as a teacher. In your hand, a scroll, at your feet, a spiral etched in gold. You close your eyes and sleep. Sleep doesn't come like a fall, it comes like a rising tide, soft, deliberate. Each breath is deeper than the last, and each one steals a little more weight from your body. The bench beneath you is warm from sunlight, the smell of rosemary in the air. For the first time in what feels like centuries, there is no blood under your fingernails, no roar of the crowd echoing in your skull. You dream, but the dream is different now. You are in the Colosseum again, but not as a gladiator. You walk its corridors as a builder. You see how the stones were laid, each with purpose. The blood is gone. Instead, there are carvings, thousands of them telling stories no Roman ever dared tell aloud. Children follow you. They do not fear you. They ask you questions about stars, about time, about truth. You answer gently, though you don't know how you know. The answers are not yours. They come from somewhere deeper. And when you turn the corner in that dream, you see it, the spiral, not carved in stone or painted in blood, but growing, blooming. It is a vine, a tendril of silver, reaching from the center of the arena to the sky, coiling upward like smoke. Not a curse, not a trap, a ladder. You reach for it, and just before your fingers touch it, you open your eyes. You're older now, maybe 50. There are lines around your eyes that weren't there before. Your hands are calloused from work, not war. The world around you is quiet. You are sitting beneath an olive tree, and across the garden, a new group of students approaches. Their eyes are eager. They do not bow. They do not kneel. They listen. You rise to meet them. You speak softly. You teach not history, but memory. Not the past, but the spiral of it, the way it repeats and folds and pulses. You do not speak of the monsters. You speak of mercy. You speak of Rome, not the empire, not the tyrants, the dream, the Rome that was never built with brick or gold, only breath, only will. And at night, when the stars return, you sit alone. You watch them spiral across the sky. You smile because you remember, because you survived, because you opened the gate and did not fall, because you were the collector, the vessel, the dreamer, because Rome never ends. It only spirals, and so do you. Now let yourself drift. You've walked far today, through dust, through fire, through memory. The sounds of ancient sandals on marble fade now. The roar of lions, the shouting of emperors, the thunder of Colosseum, gates gone, all quiet. Only the whisper of wind remains, and the hush of olive trees swaying like lullabies over your shoulders. The world feels soft again, the danger distant. You are no longer hunted, no longer a prisoner. You are not the spiral, you are only part of it. And as the sky dims, The stars return, one by one, not as omens, not as curses, but as gentle witnesses. Witnesses to your pain, witnesses to your journey, witnesses to your rest. Let the weight lift, let your breathing slow. In this Rome, this quiet, impossible Rome, you are safe, you are home. The spiral turns, the dream continues. Sleep now, sleep